I bet you didn't know that hope can be smuggled just like Joseph and Mary did with baby Jesus. Welcome to the Smuggling Hope podcast, where we aim to bring the real truth, freedom, and love of Jesus into every corner of your life. Hosted by Dan Lawson, this podcast is dedicated to offering Catholic counsel to everyone, whether you're dealing with marriage issues, family struggles, mental health challenges, or the growing concerns of our culture. Just as Joseph and Mary smuggled Jesus into Egypt to protect him, we're here to help you smuggle the light of Christ into your daily life, your family, your school, and your work. Imagine living with more truth, more freedom, and more love. That's what the Smuggling Hope podcast is all about. So whether you're a lifelong Catholic or just someone seeking a bit more hope and guidance, join us on this journey. Subscribe now and start smuggling some hope wherever you are. Because in today's world, we all need a little more light. Tune in, and let's bring hope to every corner of your life.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Smuggling Hope. This is designed to bring Catholic counsel to the community, helping people to increase in truth, freedom, and love. And greatly appreciate you for joining me on this episode as we prepare for the beginning of Advent. We're about a week away from the Thanksgiving holiday, but as soon as those skeletons went down, we know that people immediately started to bring out their Christmas tree and put up their Christmas lights. So do not be dismayed. This episode is designed to help us get the most out of the Christmas season and the Advent season as well, because they both move together. And really, we want to ensure that, this experience of Christmas is the best one you've had yet. Okay. Now, if you're enjoying the podcast, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, it would be great if you can hit the subscribe button. Can't explain how much that helps the program grow and reach a bigger audience and spread this message of hope throughout our world. So if you can do that, great. If you feel like I'm doing a halfway decent job, you can give me a 5-star review. Any reviews or comments that you make on the show, I do personally read. So I just want you to know, if you put a comment on YouTube or you put a comment on the Spotify link or iTunes, I will read those, and I do publish those those parts of those comments that you guys make. So before we get into today's episode on how to really have the best Christmas ever, what I want to do is kind of go over those people that have been of great support to the podcast, starting with Mezzanine Creative Co. So if you're looking for a creative firm designed to help manage your brand as a small business, check out Mezzanine Creative. Just go to mezzanine.co. There will be a link in the show notes section. And they've done a great job with our banner and our graphic for the Smuggling Hope podcast. It's very skilled artwork, and I'm trying to nail down, your graphic and your brand for your business. So check that out. Also, a huge support of this podcast is the Buffalo Chesterton Academy. Chesterton is a classical high school in the Catholic tradition. A classical high school, as sometimes people will ask, well, what does that mean? Classical education has to do with really, teaching people the evolution of free thought in the West, like Western free thought, your freedom of thinking. And so it goes through all the classics of literature and philosophy and language, so people understand how we got to this moment in history. So it helps the students learn the context, but it also allows them to develop their character, their relationships, and their spiritual life. So it hits all the dimensions of the human person, right? And allows them to learn how to think and operate in the real world. In most educational programs, most education in general, serves to just teach young people how to be consumers. You get good grades to get into a good school, you get into a good school so you can get a good job so you can buy stuff. It's not true with classical education. These young people learn how to really decide who they want to be and what they're going to do in the world upon graduation. So if you want to check out Chesterton Academy, go to BuffaloChestertonAcademy.org, .org. Again, the link is in the show notes for that. And if you're looking for a Chesterton in your neck of the woods, because we have, audience members that are all over the country or all over the world, you can go to Chesterton Academy, .org to see where your Chesterton Academies are located. And, or if you would want to even start a Chesterton Academy, a classical educational high school in your neck of the woods, because they're sprouting up all the time, right? So they're kind of coming into vogue here. So check that out. And lastly is Hearts Renewed. Hearts Renewed is an online marriage transformation program. It was designed by me over about 7 years. It was to combine Catholic theology and the classic understanding of the human person, Thomistic understanding from St. Thomas Aquinas, combine that with cutting edge psychological principles and relationship science to really give people a dynamic at home program and get rid of the guru, get rid of the therapist person. And there will always be people that will benefit greatly from counsel. And I obviously like people come to see me, but I'm only one person, and it may be very hard for you to meet with me and to do the work that I do. So I wanted to outsource it and give people access to these resources and the relationship, the conversations that really scale into the kinds of relationships that you want in your marriage, and to do it in a positive way, to do it in a very quick and simple way. So if you're looking for dynamic, simple exercises to do at home over a half an hour period or less, and if you want more peace at home, better communication, a great sex life, check out heartsrenewed.org. If you want to try the program for $1, for 7 days, just use the code RENEW. If you're a veteran for the whole month of November, so you got a couple more days left, the veterans can try the program for 30 days completely free. Just use the code VETERAN when you check out, and you'll get access to the whole program for 30 days. Again, if you sign up for the program, take a look at the exercises, print the exercises off, even if you don't want to listen to me talk, because there's a lot of video content, but the exercises really are powerful. And like I said in earlier podcasts, I've had some marriage counselors buy the program or try the free trial, download all my exercises, and use them with their clients in their own practice. So I guess I'll take that as a vote of confidence. So check that out. So really appreciate you sticking with us as we've continued with the podcast. I want to continue to make the podcast better. I'm going to keep trying new things, bringing on new some new guests over the next couple months. So continue to pray for me. Now today this is all about how do we make the best Christmas ever for our family, for ourselves and our home. How do we have the best Christmas ever? And what does that even mean, right? No, because the world has seen Christmas as a time of anxiety, and it's capitalized on the fact that there's not a lot of meaning to Christmas for a lot of people. If you talk to most young people that have gone anywhere from middle school to high school in the public spectrum, they don't really learn about Christianity or Christmas in public school. It's kind of like Santa Claus is like Tinkerbell or a fairy, and Jesus is kind of not even a real person historically. He's just a nice idea. So at this point, what Christmas has turned into for the majority of Americans, at least, is just it's a consumer holiday, right? It's a time where people really really recognize how much they probably don't know the people they live with. They don't know what's maybe important, and it creates a lot of anxiety. There's a hurry to buy lots of gifts. There's a hurry, obviously, to make everybody happy. And I think that people, like, in the flurry of activity, they miss the point, and they also get conned out of the joy of the season. And so a lot of times people will talk about that, like, they want more joy in their Christmas, right? And well, how do we get that? So in this episode, I'm going to really break that down. How do we get more joy? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it is that kids really want at Christmas time, because that's really misleading as well. But I actually want to start off the podcast today talking to you a little bit about weddings, because weddings and statistics with weddings are fascinating. So in general, like, people in America spend a lot of money on weddings, right? And the more money, so the statistics are that the more money that somebody spends on a wedding, right? You know, tens of thousands of dollars, 50,000, 80,000, 100,000, 2 million. Think about J-Lo and Ben Affleck. They were married, right? Their wedding was, I do believe, probably pretty expensive. And what you find is the more expensive and extravagant and involved the marriage ceremony is, well, I should say the wedding is, the more it loses value. It's like diminishing return, right? So these people's marriages in general, like the more you spend on a wedding, the less time people really stay married, right? So it reduces your rate of success. And why is that? I've spent $50,000 on a wedding, $80,000 on a wedding, $100,000 on a wedding. I mean, and that's not abnormal, right? I mean, I don't think that, I know people sound, maybe it sounds crazy when people hear this, but it's not abnormal. I know many people that have spent well over $100,000, which is, it used to be the cost of a home, in purchasing buying a wedding venue or getting a wedding venue, renting cars, doing things. I mean, who knows? Maybe they put a unicorn in there. I have no idea. My point is that the more that people experience, the more extravagant, the less people understand what they're doing. Now, in contrast, if you go to a wedding, and the wedding is held maybe with very minimalist standards, but everything is intentionally and deliberately done, right? And the wedding list might be kind of small, but everybody knows who's there. Maybe there's 50 people, right? 50 people at this wedding. The mother of the bride or the mother of the groom has sewed the doilies for the tablecloths. The one of the groomsmen has made the wine for the meal. This is a very intentional and deliberate experience, and it elevates the intensity of value of the marital experience. So even though there's not a great deal of maybe extravagant money dumped into this wedding, having a simpler wedding with intense understanding of value and meaning, these people have way more success long term in marriage. So why am I talking about this? Well, we spend a ton of money, right, in the United States, right? Years ago, there was a statistic, and again, statistics are kind of funny, but the statistic was that if we took all of the money, right, that the United States spent, just the United States spends on Christmas, it would solve the water crisis in the world. Think about that for a second. If we took all of the money, if we thought about all of the money that we as Americans spend on gifts, right, in the United States, and the majority of things that we buy in Christmas time, many of them are going to be thrown away within 5 years, right? But if we all if we gave all that money, we could take all of those resources, we really could end the water crisis in the world. And that's kind of an odd thing. That's how much money and again, this is before COVID. So I don't know. I mean, COVID certainly increased our desire to spend money. So keep this in perspective as we think about Christmas and the preparation for Christmas is, why are we doing what we're doing? What is Christmas about? And if you're a parent, what are you teaching your kids? If you're an adult and a single adult, an engaged adult, someone with no kids, what is this about to you? What is it that you're hoping to experience? Because we want to pursue meaning. Meaning is more important than just extravagance. Meaning is more important than like giving people $1,000 worth of gifts. Because sometimes, right, in our inability to know the people around us or our family or our children, we substitute meaning and understanding and general thoughtfulness of these people with just the guilt of, I must buy them everything, right? And so we're talking a little bit about kids on the episode today, and parents and relationships, because that's something we always cover. But in general, like the overarching place I want to start today is, how do you prepare for this holiday? How do you prepare for this holiday? And to prepare for something means you have to understand what it is about, right? If you're going to prepare a meal, you need the ingredients, right? You need the ingredients, you need the menu, and you need to have an idea of what the finished product is. And so a lot of us have either rituals, right, that are wonderful rituals of going to church, or Advent candles, or certain prayers we may say, or songs we may sing. But I want you to think about designing your holiday experience, and really to anticipate Christmas, not to obsess about it, right? And sometimes, again, like I think that all the decorations come out, and all of the decorations come out. Mariah Carey has come out, and she has started to sing, and every shopping location. And what does this do? Well, it actually makes the human person anxious. We feel like we have to go and buy more things. And 100 years ago, maybe during the Great Depression, what did people do? Well, people were first grateful, right? They were grateful for what they had. And so the first way to prepare, since this is coming right before Thanksgiving, is to really start to practice a level of gratitude and not acknowledgement of what you have in your life. And if you want to go really deep into gratitude, check out the podcast that I did last year around this time. It's called Triggering to Gratitude, or Being Triggered to Gratitude. I think it's a super helpful episode, but why wouldn't I? I want you to think about the fact that psychologically, gratitude relaxes the brain. So if we want to be relaxed and enjoy the holiday season, we want to practice gratitude. So it only makes sense that Thanksgiving is going to come before the onset of Advent, before the onset of Christmas. Do we see what we have? Do we know what we have? Our family, our resources, the money we have, the things we've survived and gone through. Because if you don't see them, they don't exist, right? If we don't appreciate the things we have, we don't exist. Now, the fruit of gratitude in many ways is usually generosity, right? If I am grateful, I have the ability to then see what I have and want to share the surplus. Even if the surplus is, maybe it's an orange, maybe it's an extra, thing of bread, maybe it's a couple bucks here or there, or a donation to the local food pantry or whatever it is, or money to my employees. I mean, you want to be able to see first what you have. Because if you don't see it, it doesn't exist. And in the United States specifically, and in business in general, we have what we call a scarcity mindset, which means that there's just not enough. People are very envious of one another, and they compete, especially wealthier people or people with means. They compete and compare more and more with other people, and they find it harder and harder to be grateful. Why? Well, because they have everything. They don't have much to really hope for, because they have a yacht, because they have, the newest guitar, or the newest SUV. They're going on these vacations to the French Riviera on the drop of a hat. So it's very hard to be hopeful. To be hopeful, you need to have struggle. And so the wealthier you become, believe it or not, the wealthier you become, the less struggle is involved in your life. And struggle is a psychological need for hope. If you think about hope as a psychological resource, you need struggle. You have something to aspire to. So it becomes more complicated. That's why being spiritual and having meaning in your life is so essential, especially if you have been successful in a financial way, because otherwise, without the meaning, it just starts to rot you out. So the first component is to be grateful. And gratitude is a passive experience in many ways, meaning that it's something that you can reflect on, or something that can be given to you. And what I talked about on the podcast last year in November was that I explained that what we know from neuroscience is that gratitude is most powerful when it's received, meaning when somebody comes to you and tells you the difference, right, that you've made in their life. So if my wife was to come to me and tell me this is where she's struggled and this is how I've made a difference in her life, that will alter my identity. That will alter the narrative of what's going on in my life and who I am. And most of us never get letters like that, or never have conversations like that. It would be wonderful if we did. And I would encourage you to do just that. Find the people in your life. Think about the struggles in your own life. Think about the difference that they've made, and go to that person and read that letter aloud to them. Read that statement aloud to help recognize in one another the gifts of each other's life. But gratitude is a passive thing. And it's a requirement to cultivate more gratitude if we want joy, right? Because joy is actually an active psychological process. It is something that we choose. So when people think about joy from a psychological lens, think that joy is the choice to receive the present moment with love. To receive the present moment with love. Now, most of the time, we're experiencing the present moment through a lens of evaluation and judgment or comparison. We either are like, oh, this is a wonderful moment, I hope it never ends, or oh, I hate this, I hope it's over, or oh, I wish I could get more of this. But we're not in a state where we're relaxed, right? So gratitude relaxes us so that we can choose joy. And oftentimes joy is a process of regular reflection of choice, right? And so if you're looking to prepare for, Christmas, you're looking to have more joy, start with gratitude, but articulate and talk about the things that you enjoy most, the things that you are enjoying most in your marriage, in your friendships, at work, with your parents, with your friends at school. Talk about these things because, again, if you don't talk about them, they don't exist. And when you choose to talk about them, they reactivate the parts of your brain that makes you more excited and more enthusiastic. It also allows your brain to perceive more of these things, right? And so, again, joy is a little bit more tricky than just being grateful. But we always want to start with gratitude. St. Ignatius of Loyola, the great Catholic saint and mystic, always said that the devil goes after our gratitude first, right? Goes after our gratitude first. And then what happens is he destroys our trust. If you think about Adam and Eve in the garden, the devil convinces Eve first, right? And then Adam, but he convinces Eve by saying, well, God really doesn't trust you. You really can't trust him. He's holding something back from you. This scarcity again, and the scarcity and the ungratefulness, and then the lack of trust. The devil always wants to make us not trust God and instead trust in ourselves. Because if we trust in ourselves, we replicate him, and then we choose hell. Right? That's kind of how the devil operates in our lives. We don't trust God. We trust in ourselves. Our life gets smaller. Sin comes up more readily and shrinks us, and then we imitate Satan, worship ourselves, and go to hell. So that's a whole other episode of the podcast. But again, we're preparing for Christmas, and so when we think about this, right? Saint John Chrysostom, one of the old church fathers, Saint John Chrysostom, says that there are three advents. So the word advent means the coming, right? So there are three comings or three advents of Christ, right? There's the first coming, right, in the physical sense, where Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, right? That's the first advent. Then the second coming of Jesus, it is going to happen to all of us when we die, right? That is the second coming or the second advent, right? But the third advent is the way that Jesus shows up every day, the way that Jesus shows up every day in our life, but he comes up invisibly, right? And if we don't see him, we miss him. And that is what he calls the third advent, that every day God is trying to love you. So as we approach Thanksgiving, as we approach the Advent season, you do not want to separate yourself from Christ. You want to be able to see how he's trying to love you every day. And if you live with people, whether it's a spouse or children or your parents or whoever, start to think about, like, how was I loved by God today? And if you're a single person, same thing. Reflect at the end of your evening, how was I loved by Christ today? Because the more you see that, the more you're going to respond with joy, and the less agitated and afraid you're going to be in this life. And the less you're going to have this speed, because our life speeds up. Our life speeds up at the rate of our fear. So you'll see when it's Black Friday sales and everybody's killing each other and running each other over at Target or Walmart or Best Buy, or people are crashing the server at Amazon to get their, well, they'll be doing maybe Cyber Monday. Like that speed means that there's fear. And again, if you pay attention to your fear, right, and you pay attention to the speed, fear is always fear of loss, as I've talked about in this podcast. So you got to think about what you're attached to and what you're afraid of losing. Why is there this fear? Are you afraid you're going to be rejected by your family? Are you afraid that people aren't going to like you? Are you afraid that people aren't going to remember you? Are you afraid that, you're not loved? But remember, like, we do not want to prepare through fear, because what will happen is you will not really remember these experiences. We want to be able to enjoy them slowly and fully. We don't want to be a mass in all this anxiety. So, go slow. So prepare, understand, like, that there are these three advents. Prepare through gratitude, recognizing how to choosing joy amidst all of this. And as we talk about the preparation, right, every day is a preparation, right? And you want to think about in that preparation, what do you want to experience? And what is it specifically that is going to prepare you most for Christmas? Now, one of the things that I recommend from a spiritual and psychological sense is how to get more empty. I know it sounds weird, but if you think about the Blessed Mother, Jesus is born in her because she's fully surrendered, right, to Christ. And so she's emptied out, and God fills her up in an incarnate way where he is actually born physically inside of the Blessed Mother. And so for us, if we are trying to prepare for Christmas, she is a person that we really need to reflect on and draw some kind of mentorship from the Blessed Mother and friendship with her. And to empty out means figure out what your attachments are, figure out what your fears are. What am I afraid of? We all have fears, and we always will have some version of them. But it's important that we surrender them to God, and so that Christ can come alive in us, because it's Christ that's coming into our heart on Christmas. And we need to kind of make sure that it's not a animal stable inside of our heart, crap in there and weird animal sounds in our heart, beastly things, right? So as you prepare psychologically, think about the Blessed Mother. She is perfectly humble. That's why the devil hates her. She is perfectly submissive. That's why the Muslims love her, right? Because she's completely submitted to the will of God. And that's really, like, again, the more we can consecrate ourselves and reflect the Blessed Mother, we reflect her Son as she did, right? The Blessed Mother, we do not, as if you're a non-Catholic and you're listening to this podcast and you're like, wow, Catholics are virgin worshipers. No, it's like I've said multiple times on this podcast, we do not worship the Blessed Mother. We venerate her, but it's like the sun and the moon. The moon glows at night, but it doesn't glow on its own accord. The moon glows because it reflects the sun. And so, and that's really always been the Catholic understanding of the Blessed Mother, is that she always draws you to her Son. So I don't mean to go off on this. I'm not trying to do a spiritual retreat, but prepare in practical nature, right? And so if I want you to think about this, is think about who you want to be or what you want to see happen in your family at the end of Advent. On Christmas Day, how would you like to reflect Christ more? How would you like to invite him in to your home, your heart? Will he be more part of your home, or will you just have more stuff? You'll have another video game system. You'll have more books that you can't read. You'll have more exercise equipment. You'll have more whatever. But will you have him? And that's the thing, is if we're preparing, we should have more Christ at the end of Advent, not more stuff. Super important that you get that clear. Too many people are worried about getting stuff, but Jesus is the last thing. Yes, we're going to sing songs on Christmas Eve, right? When we're all half-cocked from our Christmas Eve dinner and had too many cocktails and pass out in the church. So, the memories, right? So you just need to be mindful that that's not the goal of Advent. That's not the goal of Christmas, is getting through it either. I hear people always say they're getting through Christmas. They're upset about the list of things that they've got to do or buy. Imagine my family, right? I've got 7 kids. My parents, my mother, and my in-laws and their aunts. We have to come up with a whole system, because otherwise people get stressed and broke and everything, right? So I need you to just keep that in mind in preparation, right? So think about it from a spiritual dimension, and think about, like, if you have the spiritual understanding, how are you going to get more Christ at the end? How is he going to enter your home? The question is then what rituals, behaviors, things will make it easier to permit that in? And I would select specific things that will assist you with that. You can't do everything this Advent. Some of you are single and you can make a pilgrimage. Some of you are married with no kids. Some of you are older and your kids are grown, or you might be a widower or widow. We really want to find and listen to what Christ is asking you to do, and make a simple practice that's going to, at the end, hopefully bring you closer to Jesus. But make sure that you try to do something that you can finish, not 15 things. I'm one of those people too that will start 15 things and not finish a single one and then get terribly depressed. So scale back and make sure it's sustainable. It's like I talked about in last week's podcast. If it's not sustainable, it's probably not worth the involvement. Now, as you prepare for Christmas, right, again, like that intentionality needs to lead you. If everybody's rushing to the store, you don't need to be rushing. You shouldn't be upset. And again, if you're going through these experiences and you notice that you're tense or anxious or pressured, something's wrong. So take the time to scale back and reflect. This helps us to focus on what we value, not what we need to acquire or who we need to please. Because at the end of the day, right, it's important that we end up as the person that we're going to be pleased with. That's why it's so important to start out with, a focus right off the bat. So as you think about our movement towards Christmas time and having it, that's important. But focus on your values. Focus on rituals. Again, maybe you like to make cookies. Maybe there's a specific, maybe you like to look at the lights. Maybe there's music you like to listen to. All that's wonderful. All that's wonderful. And you want to do those things, especially if they promote joy and they link to memories that are positive, right? And and again, there are so many experiences that maybe if you have children, you want to share with your children, but you're not going to be able to do all. And it's okay to see your state in life is different than maybe the state of life you had when you were a kid. And but but try to create memories, right? Memories intentionally showing up in your life, doing things that produce more joy, right? Things that you actually feel alive doing. So if you really have a desire for skating outside, if you have a desire to look at the lights, if you want to go for a hike, you want to connect to desire, right? Desire will help you to understand what you value, and desire in a healthy way will also help you to understand how you want to invest your time. Because not everything is something that you desire. Sometimes the things that you feel like you have to do, they're not going to even be of value because they produce stress. So I want you to listen to yourself or your spouse or your friends or your parents or your whoever when they start saying things like, I have to go here. I have to do this. As soon as you have the have tos and gottas, get your mind out of the gotta, because now we're getting on the anxious mind. We need to scale back. We need to scale back. It's not about the gotta or the have to. Choose choice. Be intentional. I desire to do this. And it's important that you advocate for yourself. If there's things that maybe your parents or people want to do that you may not necessarily want to do or produces stress, be honest. Because maybe your state in life has changed. You're now, 25, 35, whatever, and your parents are older, but you can't do what you used to do. You have kids or you have a job or you have stuff that you got to do. But you always want to do things that, again, give you a sense of joy, but the joy will be connected to healthy desire. Okay? Super important, because a lot of us are really disconnected from desire, and partially because of original sin. Instead, we don't listen to desire, and so we frustrate it and we choose sin, right? Desire actually comes from God. The more we are moving into desire in a healthy way, the more peace we have, and usually the more relaxation we have. When we are trying to do things in a frustrated way, we get more stressed. It's like we're trying to please people or trying to make things happen or trying to get our way. Selfishness comes. When you're pursuing desire, you forget about yourself, right? I remember one of my favorite memories of the holiday time was going up curling in Canada with my friends and spending the afternoon there, just going curling. That was one of my favorite experiences. And it's not something that, again, I'm not doing this every week or all the time. It's not like it was a regular occurrence, but it was a powerful and positive memory that right now, when I think about it, it draws me back. Again, that's the joy component. I was fully present, and it was something that, again, that I desire. And I'd love to go back and maybe do that. So remember that, right? So again, recognize your desire and what it is that you value. Get your mind out of the gotta, okay? We want to be producing memories. And to produce memories means that, we have to be fully present. And to be present realistically is you're going to have to sleep better. And I'm not going to get into all the things about sleep. Check the past podcast. I have a whole podcast, on sleep called The Sandman's Toolbox. Check that out. But right now, because it's wintertime, it's super important that you figure out ways to get light in your eyes earlier, whether it's that light box that I've talked about. I'll put like a link to it in the show notes if you want. But realistically, you want to have light in the morning, about 10,000 lux a minute. So if you're going to get a light box, get that so that your brain is in the correct rhythm for sleep. Because right now, when we wake up, it's dark and we go to work and we don't get enough light. And that's a huge reason why a lot of us get seasonal affective disorder. So as you prepare and you're trying to make memories, you need to sleep correctly. Because if people talk all the time about, I got to be present. I'm taking meditation classes. I'm trying to be present. But you don't sleep and you're on your phone all the time. Heck, you're doing meditation apps on your phone at night. Neurologically, that doesn't work. You need to get sleep if you want to be present in your life. If you don't sleep, you don't think well, and your waking state, remember on this podcast I've said this, but your waking state, if you're depressed or anxious, a lot of that always goes back to what is the quality of your sleep, what's going on with that. And that's hard to always figure out. So make sure you're sleeping correctly. With your kids, if you're a parent and you have kids, really, I strongly discourage you. I know we just did Halloween a couple weeks ago, but you're going to notice, just so that nobody, I'm not here to give people health advice. I'm not your medical provider. I'm not your nutritionist, but sugar reduces your immune system function, right? So if you're consuming sugar, Hershey's, Reese's, cakes, cookies, pies, puddings, figgy pudding, whatever, alcohol, this reduces your immune system. So if you're feeding your kids or your kids are eating a lot of sweets and you're like, well, it's just the season. That's why it's the cold season. That's why it's the flu season. That's why people get really sick. It's not the only reason. But a big reason is that people do not eat healthy at this time of year. And we do not I discourage people to overindulge in these things, because the side effect is you're going to feel really bad, especially like, just, in between these moments. It's going to make you more anxious. So stabilize your blood sugar. I encourage you to really reduce or at least limit the amount of sugar that you feed your children, or the sugar you consume yourself, and the amount of alcohol, because that's really going to screw with your blood sugar. When blood sugar is disrupted and goes up and down, your hormones will go up and down, and just keep that in the back of your mind. So if you want to be present, you want to enjoy the holiday season, don't overdo it with the sugar. Don't overdo it with, the sweets and alcohol. So your sleep will be okay. One of the most practical things that people get concerned about, though, in the holidays is not usually always getting sick, although that's part of it. But the other dimension of this is this idea of realistically, making sure that you're able to figure out what to do with the gift giving thing. So why do we give gifts at all in Christmas? There are cultures that do not give gifts. There are families that do not give gifts. Remember, there are what we call social traps. In America, it's become something we've been conned into, just like we give 8-year-olds iPhones. Why would we do that? iPhones are like giving your kid like cocaine at 8 years old, but people do it because they think they're supposed to if they're going to be a good parent. If you want to start, again, I always joke with people, if you want to be the chaperone for your kid, in the biggest city of the world like Las Vegas, if you want to chaperone your 8-year-old there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, get him an iPhone. I personally do not want to chaperone my kid in Las Vegas. The internet is the biggest city in the world, and in the bigger cities, there's always antisocial, dangerous, criminal people. And there's a lot of stuff you're going to get to see that it's not appropriate for an 8 or 9-year-old kid. So that's a whole other slew of things. Now, if you're thinking about gifts, though, again, figure out, number one, why. If you live with people, if you live with a spouse, if you live with friends or family, or if you're going to give gifts at work, figure out what the rules are of gift giving in your family. Like in my marriage, like for the most part, because I live with my wife and my kids, like I don't really, we exchange gifts, and we do like a Secret Santa thing. But realistically, I'm not getting my wife I'm not getting her like a million things. Why? It goes back to what I said in the beginning of the podcast, which is about the weddings. The more you give people things, there's a reducing, the law of diminishing returns. To give my wife $1,000 or $5,000 worth of gifts, it doesn't mean much, right? It all, if anything, it means that maybe I've been mindless, that I really haven't thought of her. I've decided to give her all this. I think my wife would be anxious if I gave her all that because there's an expectation. And also, like, what gifts mean to her are different things, right? So to give somebody a ton of gifts, well, why? And you need to know why. Now, if you know you live with people that expect a lot, then you still have to be curious as to why. But the more you give people, the less they appreciate. That's just an important thing psychologically. Just like I told you about the weddings. You know, when Jennifer Lopez gets married and the helicopter comes down and they've got a $200,000 cake and they've got all of these people that are probably in the P. Diddy investigation, right? They're all under federal lockdown now, but they all showed up on their own private jets and they all came for the party with personal DJ. Again, it means nothing. It becomes very trivial, right? And the marriage lasts 6 months. With your kids, you're going to give them each hundreds of dollars worth of gifts or thousands of dollars worth of gifts. Why? Why? And do they need them? Do they really need this? And what's it for? And what does it say? And do your kids really understand the value of what you're giving them? So again, this movement of giving people more, remember, the more you give them, the less it means to them. Not because it's not meaningful. It's just that there's too much. So the intentionality always goes down. Okay. So when you do give gifts of a physical nature in the holidays, think about the person. I find it helpful to write the person's name down, and I still do this periodically. Write the person's name down if I get somebody. What are the things this person loves? What are the things that this person is good at? What is the stuff that this person talks to me about? And this is all stuff I cannot think about intellectually. I have to write it down to make mental connections. And those lists of what they love, what they talk about, what they're good at, that brain tree of activity gives me at least a general direction as to what it is that those people would be interested in. And giving a gift should be exciting, not anxiety provoking. Like, you should be excited to give it to the person, not anxious about, do they like it or do they not? Should I buy another thing? Do I need to buy another thing? Because if that's happening, there's a fear there again. And we do not want to give gifts of fear. We want to give gifts of joy. I thought of you, and this is what I gave you. Now, some people are going to be very specific, and they're going to be and they don't want to be a burden, right? Or they don't want to be an inconvenience, and they will write lists, or they will be very direct. This is what I want for Christmas. Donate this money. I want this shirt. And that's fine. You just need to know your tribe, know the people that you're celebrating with. But the gifts and the ability to give them, if you're asking people for ideas, or it's a good assessment of, do you have a relationship with these people? And you probably want to spend the Advent time as you approach Christmas getting to know that person. I think it's a good thing when you do, Secret Santa stuff, because oftentimes it should be almost a reconnaissance mission or an intelligence mission of, can I get intel on, this person in my family or this person who's at work? Do I get to know their inner world? Because we really don't spend a lot of time in our busy lives studying the inner world of our friends. We don't study the inner world of our colleagues at work or our parents or even our spouses or our children. So that's why this is so important. And so that's why I say go slow and take the pressure off in some ways. And I know it's difficult, but you got to get rid of this idea of perfection. It's not about perfection. It's about being meaningful and doing essentially what is going to be pleasing to God, and, and to really show love towards these people. And so you're not going to make everybody happy. Maybe your gifts won't be making everybody happy. Maybe your choice of dessert on Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve won't be, won't be what people want. Now, with your kids, the thing that your children are not going to communicate to you, but that they all want, and this is hard, especially for people that are divorced and have children or are not living with their spouse, is your children really want to see mom and dad love each other. They really do. I don't care if you have adult kids that are 28 or 30 and you are 60 or 70, your children want to see you love your spouse. So if you're a married person and you have children, it's important that your children be able to see you love your spouse. And so obviously that's not going to be able to happen for everybody. But if you are struggling in your marriage, again, that's why we created the Hearts Renewed program, so that you really can have the kind of marriage that, that you delight in and that your children can delight in. Because when your children, for them to enjoy what's going on, they have to be relaxed. Otherwise, children worry about their parents. And the reason why seeing your parents love each other is important is because that is something that conveys to your children that they, in many ways, don't really have to worry about it. They see mom is taken care of by dad or dad is taken care of by mom, and they love each other and they can relax. And they also don't see that dynamic. It's kind of weird, right? They don't see the dynamic of mom and dad as a threat to them in terms of their relationship. It's very challenging, actually, because psychologically, the research is that once you bring a step parent into the mix, right? So this does not mean that in every case that there is a step parent, because I know many people that have wonderful step parents, and this is not happening in all cases by any stretch. But whenever we look at cases of abuse at home, what is 100, what is correlated 100 times with the abuse in a home is the addition of a step parent in the home, because the child does not view that person, right, dad's new girlfriend or mom's new girlfriend, even if they care about them, they do not see that person as a, believe it or not, they don't see that person as a mutual support. They see that as competition. The child sees that new person as competition to dad's affection or mom's affection. And so there's immediate friction for the child, regardless of who the step parent is. And I always find that statistic shocking because like I said, people are wonderful, but these experiences are very difficult. So if you are a married person with children and your marriage is having a difficult go of it, invest in your marriage. Your children are going more than a new video game system, more than hundreds of dollars worth of clothing. Your children are going to want to see you love your spouse and be able to relax. That's what they're going to enjoy. That's what's going to allow them to enjoy their gifts and things. Now, if you're divorced or if you're single and raising your kids as a single parent, single mom, single dad, or you're divorced, it's important that your kids see you happy, because that is the important thing. They need to see that mom and dad are happy, even though maybe the other spouse isn't there, even though the other parent isn't there, or the parent has died, or the parent is living with another person and there's a divorce or separation. But the children need to see the parents happy, because that allows them to relax. Otherwise, they're going to be focused on attending to your emotional needs, and that's not probably what you want. Okay. So just keep that in the back of your mind, and you want to maintain an awareness of that and do things that essentially will ensure that you can be in the best place you can. And so maybe that's inviting other friends or being around other family so that you are in many ways looking forward to the holiday. But you do not want to just make the holiday about your children. That's dangerous, because the holiday is not about children. The holiday is about Jesus Christ. So if you have, and why is this so important, is because that's why we're doing all this. We're not doing all this because, it's a season of giving, right? I mean, technically life is all about giving. Like, I have to continue to give my life away till I'm dead. Just the fact that there's Christmas doesn't mean that, there's just this dimension. So we want to extend that. We want to make sure children are learning about life, learning about who Jesus Christ is. And again, if at the end of Christmas, children don't have a knowledge, or we don't have a closer relationship with Jesus, we haven't brought them into our heart or into our home, just brought more stuff, we've got a problem. Okay. And so make sure that, as you think about that day, that time with Christmas with your family, that you design it so that you feel relaxed. Remember, if you're relaxed, you're going to have more joy. If you're stressed, less joy. We do not want to make decisions that put us in positions where we're more tense and more stressed. So be honest about what you can and can't do. Maybe you don't want to make the 3 turkeys for Thanksgiving. Maybe you don't want to make all of the side dishes for Christmas Eve. Maybe you don't want to have to, buy all 14 and a half grandchildren like 15 gifts. That will probably stress you out. So be honest. Remember, it's about doing what pleases Christ. If that is disordered and you're trying to please people, you're going to start out in a really agitated way this Christmas season. But we're not there yet. Get to Thanksgiving. Practice being grateful now. Count your blessings and share your blessings and check how generous am I able to be with my money, with my time, right? And what are my priorities? So hopefully this is a good start for you guys. I will keep you in my prayers. And like I said, if you are looking for a great way to give your children the best gift they can for this Christmas, check out the Hearts Renewed program, so that, your children do see 2 people who love each other at the holiday time. But I'll be looking forward to talking to you all next week, right before the Thanksgiving holiday. So take care and smuggle some hope wherever you can.